hear things. Let's see what we got in here. What is the deal? Volume, yeah. Test speakers, yeah. I see everyone's got their speaker, their microphones off. Well, anyway, I'll just keep reading through the ones in the chat. And if people want to chat.
Akshata had a question.
Oh, perfect.
Oh, okay. Now you hear me.
Yes.
Sorry, no, I was just going to check in that are you able to hear? But I think McDale had a question if she wants to go first.
Go for it.
Hey, McDale, do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So one of my questions is it better to let people ask you questions through the presentation or at the end? And if so, like, how do you decide that?
I guess it really depends on your comfort level. Like for me, I don't mind questions in between. Like if we're in person, it's a lot easier to get questions in between. I couldn't hear anything until just now, but I find it doesn't bother me because then I can engage more and get more direct information to people. And they'll sometimes come up with points that like I'm either discussing later on in my presentation. So I'm like, I'm going to get to this to give you more detail, but here's like a small piece of it. Otherwise, if you're a beginner level for pitching and presenting and public speaking, probably questions at the end make the most sense. Like I had a friend, she told me she did a whole presentation, like a whole hour, all about whatever she was speaking about. And then she had someone ask a question that made it feel as if she was being attacked in a sense. She's like, he asked me a question that was so tough, I didn't know how to answer it. And I didn't know what to do with that. I was like, well, what'd you do? She's like, I kind of just stumbled my way through, but like, how do you deal with people that ask questions that you like, he probably wasn't intentionally trying to knock her off her course, but it was too difficult. So one of the things I suggested was, and this applies great for anyone that's like having a tough question, is if you know that someone else in the room knows more information than you, like there's other presenters that also speak on a similar topic, you'd be like, well, I don't know everything about what you're asking me, but Dr. such and such over here, or Professor Instagram, or whoever like you can reference might be able to speak more clearly on that. Or you can then take their question and turn it around and ask the audience the same thing. Be like, oh, that's a really great question, which I definitely know the answer to. Does anyone else want to try and answer this for her? Or does anyone else like want to give it a shot of what they think we could do for XYZ? That's a great way to kind of like knock it off the little course, and then you could move past it without having to really give them an answer on your own accord. Sound like Ryan Reynolds. Awesome. My volume was turned down.
Ian?
Yes.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
How do you not be pushy, but also at the same time pitch about your whatever proposal that you have? Like say, for instance, like I'm an artist. I want to talk about my stuff, but at the same time, I do not want to make the other person feel that I'm bragging about myself. You know what I mean? Like, how do you do that? Like, how do you balance that?
You do have to brag about yourself, as ridiculous as it feels, because who else is going to care, right? Like when it's your business, you are the #1 fan. And as the fan club president, CEO, and owner of the entire thing, you have to be the one constantly pushing it and trying to create those other fans by pushing it on them and things like that. Like if you look at Natalie Very B's Instagram, her fan base has grown to the point where they're now sharing her work. They're like, look at this, or I love this, or her new post about this. They are now pushing it. But at the beginning, she was probably the only one pushing it at all because she was the only one that cared enough about it to interact with people. So if you have something that you care about, you do have to have that braggadocious element to it and keep pushing that sort of thing.
Thanks.
No problem. I see another question in the chat. What do you think about people using their phones while presenting? As in like the presenter being on their phone? Terrible.
Yeah, it's like I have been through some presentations where the notes are actually on their phones. For me, that doesn't look professional at all, and I really hate it. But you, as a formal professional presenter, what do you think about that?
You're right. It looks very unprofessional. I can't stand. I've seen performers do this. I've seen public speakers do this. I don't understand why. Like it's either on paper, printed at Staples or at your home printer ahead of time, or it's up here. Totally fine to have notes. Notes are a fantastic way to keep yourself on board and what you're doing. but reading it off a screen, there's just so much that can distract you within that. Like so I used to never read off screens when I'd perform until one day I wrote something so new that I had to like dig it out of my email, and I performed it for a group. As I'm in the middle of it, my mom called me on her birthday, by the way, to remind me about her birthday. So I was like, okay, I'm going to turn this whole thing around. I then had an audience of like 50 people sing happy birthday to my mom, which was a lot of fun and awesome element. But I was like, oh my God, that was ridiculous. Like, how could anyone use their phone? Like, unless it's in airplane mode or something, your text messages can come through, an email, whatever could pop up, including your mom calling on her birthday, wondering why you didn't call to say happy birthday while she's in Myrtle Beach or whatever it was. So yeah, don't use a phone if you can. Like, you want to look like you have yourself together, and that means printed notes or memorized notes or whatever it might be. Happy birthday, my mom, in advance.
Oh, can you also add maybe to what Akshata was asking about? You know how you can brag about yourself, but you can also like be kind and sweet while doing that? Do you know what I mean? There's two
What was
different
the
attitudes.
question?
Oh, she was asking how she can talk about her business and like promote it without being braggy.
Oh yeah, yeah, okay.
Like, what kind of attitude would you use, like with examples about bragging about yourself, but also being kind and not trying to seem like you're the coolest person in the room, even though obviously you are, but you know what I mean?
It's such a fine line to walk between like being super cocky about something that you're talented at, and then also saying like someone like, hey, I'm talented at this, and here's the proof. Here's my 10,000 Instagram followers. Here's we accomplished this. We sold this much. I don't know. Though, to me, those braggadocious statistics and facts are what lend more credibility to you. So if you'd be like, oh, like we were on breakfast television one year showing our product, or we were on, et cetera, that helped lends more credibility to you. So like when I talked about in the beginning, having a show, when I started my poetry slam event, we ran for 5 years. The first year we had maybe 5 people maximum at a show. And that was like the 5 girlfriends watching their boyfriends perform. Years later, as we progressed and got bigger and bigger, the thing suddenly became 10 people, 20 people, 15 people, filling up a whole room, etc. So we suddenly had bragging rights. We had gotten grants. We had the TV show. We filled the room. All these little notions kind of gave more credibility to that. So when you could find ways to show credibility, to me, that's not bragging. That's, I guess it's bragging, but it's it's showing that benefit that like, yes, I accomplished this. Yes, someone else believed in me. Enough people believed in me to get that 10,000 followers. Enough people believed in me to get a government grant. Enough people believed in me to make a television show. That just shows that credibility. And that's, to me, what's the most important when you're talking about these sort of things.
That appreciation, huh?
And appreciation. It shows that someone else had already appreciated your product before you get it pitched to you. Like, these people all care. Don't you want to care? Any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself and yell out anything. Ian, where'd you get your glasses from? Ian, where's that cutting board from? Ian, what's all the post notes over here?
That's actually a good question. What are those notes there?
Those are, so I run also an Airbnb out of my home when I go away for vacations or anything like that. So those are reviews people have left me on Post-it notes. So it's not just the reviews you get right on the website. I also have these as a reminder of why I keep doing it and the nice things people say about my space and my home and all the little details. It's just like a little nice thing for me. Although the last 3 people, what'd they write? They suck. They wrote, great place, thanks for the stay. And then the person wrote, thanks for the stay, great place. Just basically the last 3 were the exact same sentence over and over. I don't like unoriginal things like that. I like the more detailed and thoughtful ones. But yeah, it's just reminders of myself of why I enjoy doing this for people.
Can I just say something?
Of course.
Pretty sure those post-it notes are a daily reminder of bragging rights.
Yes.
Yeah.
They remind me of how much hard work I put into like building this home and all the custom woodwork and everything. So I like it. It's, yeah, and colorful.
Cool.
How are you using your time in self-isolation with COVID? Any new ideas? I dug out like all my old video game systems. That's been going really good. So instead of like buying a new game for Xbox One, I'm playing like Xbox 360. I'm playing the Wii. I haven't played video games in like 10 years. So it took a pandemic to get me back into it. So that's been a great way to just kill time. But on the more beneficial side of things, I've been just working on other workshops and just taking time to write things out, creating little art projects for myself, just to kind of keep myself engaged with things, because it's like, it gets so, the work is drying up right now for a lot of people, and myself included. I'm just trying to find other ways to keep my creative mindset going. So last night, me and a group of people sat down and worked on YouTube clickbait titles, because all of our YouTube videos for the Fuck Up Nights Toronto channel are really crappy and boring. They just say like the date and the person's name, and no one wants to click on those. And by the way, these are some other events I work on. So Fuck Up Nights Toronto is a speaker series and community event that shares stories of professional failure and upcoming events. We don't have any there in person right now because of the COVID, but they're offered online. So you could check them out on their Instagram there. And if you're looking for a podcast about, well, it's unusual talks with entrepreneurs discussing the fame, fortune, and failure on the road to success, plus bad date stories, which I got like so many of, and had like comedians come in and tell theirs. You could check out the podcast. I think the trailer is currently up, episodes coming soon, and there's an Instagram handle for that. So I always try and just stay involved in events and working on other projects. Particularly, I need to spend more time on the podcast now that I've got nothing but time on my hands again. Yeah, I only like Halo. And BioShock I'm playing now. Anyway, I think that's it for the questions, because now we're just getting into what the hell I'm doing with my time. Thank you, everyone, so much for coming out to this day. Thank you, Arts of Etobicoke, for having me. And thank you for the questions. It's been a real pleasure. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you. Oh, and if you want this whole presentation deck with way more detail in it, you can throw your email in the chat, and I can send it to you after the fact, if that's all right with you guys. How do I get that screen share? What? Oh, there we go. Cool. You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Ian. That was amazing and very
Thank you.
insightful.
Cool. Yeah, I'm glad. It was really fun. So yeah, anyone that wants to put their email and their name in the chat would be perfect. I can send the whole slide deck to you, which will have all the details you've seen, plus even more of the ones that I had on my own reading off of. And yeah, be perfect. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today.